Hello all, welcome to my channel. This video is about the period from 1914 to 1939. Let's see what is the speciality of this period from 1914 to 1939. This period is generally known as there was emergence of modern literature during this time. The era between the two world wars, marked by the trauma of the Great Economic Depression beginning in 1929, was that of the emergence of what is still known as modern literature, which in America reached an eminence rivaling that of the American Renaissance of the mid 19th century. Unlike most of the authors of that earlier period, however, the American modernists also achieved widespread international recognition and influence. So, the speciality of this period from 1914 to 1939 is the emergence of modern literature in America, and they gained widespread international recognition and influence. Poetry magazine, founded in Chicago by Harriet Monroe in 1912, published many innovative authors. Among the notable poets were Edgar Lee Masters, Edwin Arlington Robinson, Robert Frost, Carl Sandburg, Wallace Stevens, William Carlos Williams, Ezra Pound, Robinson Jeffers, Marianne Moore, T.S. Eliot, Edna St. Vincent Millay, and E. Cummings, authors who wrote in an unexampled variety of poetic modes. So the speciality of these authors, they wrote in unexampled variety of poetic modes. This included the imagism of Amy Lowell, H.D., that is Hilda Doolittle, and other poems, the metric poems by Frost and the free verse poems by William in American vernacular. The formal and typographic experiments of Cummings, the poetic naturalism of Jeffers, and the assimilation to their own distinctive uses by Pound and Eliot of the forms and procedures of French symbolism merged with the intellectual and figurative methods of the English metaphysical poets. I repeat, what happened during this period? The imagism was prominent. The imagism of Amy Lowell, Hilda Doolittle, and others. The metric poems by Frost and the free verse poems by Williams in the American vernacular. The formal and typographic experiences of Cummings. The poetic naturalism of Jeffers and the assimilation to their own distinctive uses by Pound and Eliot of the forms and procedures of French symbolism merged with the intellectual and figurative methods of the English metaphysical poets during this time. Among the major writers of prose fiction were Edith Wharton, Sinclair Lewis, Ellen Glasgow, Willa Cather, Gertrude Stein, Sherwood Anderson, John Dos Passos, Scott Fitzgerald, William Faulkner, Ernest Hemingway, Thomas Wolfe, and John Steinbeck. So the major writers of prose fiction were Edith Wharton, Sinclair Lewis, Ellen Glasgow, Willa Cather, Gertrude Stein, Sherwood Anderson, John Dos Passos, Scott Fitzgerald, William Faulkner, Ernest Hemingway, Thomas Wolfe, and John Steinbeck. America produced in this period its first great dramatist in Eugene O'Neill, as well as a group of distinguished literary critics that included Van Wyck Brooks, Malcolm Cowley, T.S. Eliot, Edmund Wilson, and the irreverent and caustic H.L. Mencken. The literary production of this irreverent and the literary productions of this era are often subclassified in a variety of ways. The flamboyant and pleasure-seeking 1920s are sometimes referred to as the Jazz Age. Interesting name, right? A title popularized by Scott Fitzgerald's Tales of the Jazz Age, published in 1922. So this period is also known as the Jazz Age, which was popularized by Scott Fitzgerald's Tales of the Jazz Age, published in 1922. The same decade was also the period of the Harlem Renaissance, which produced major writings in all the literary forms by Countee Cullen, Langston Hughes, Claude McKay, Jean Toomer, Zora Neale Hurston, and many other African American writers. See, you can analyze what Harlem Renaissance is. Please refer my previous video about Harlem Renaissance. Many prominent American writers of the decade following the end of World War I, disillusioned by their war experiences and alienated by what they perceived as the crassness of the American culture and its puritanical expressions, are often tagged as the lost generation. So you have noted the point, I think so. So the first important term associated this period is the Jazz Age. This period is also known as the Jazz Age. Again, the period of lost generation. Why this period is commonly known as the period of lost generation? Many prominent American writers of the decade following the end of World War I, they were disillusioned by the war experiences and alienated by what they perceived as the crassness of the American culture and its puritanical repressions, are often tagged as the lost generation. A number of these writers became expatriates, moving either to London or to Paris in their quest for a richer literary and artistic milieu and a freer way of life. Ezra Pound, Gertrude Stein, and T.S. Eliot lived out their lives abroad, but most of the younger exiles, as Malcolm Cowley called them, came back to America in the 1930s. Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises and Fitzgerald's Tender is the Night are novels that represent the mood and way of life of two groups of American expatriates. In the radical 30s, the period of the Great Depression and of the economic and social reforms in the New Deal inaugurated by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, some authors joined radical political movements and many others dealt in their literary works with pressing social issues of the time, including in the novel William Faulkner, John Dos Passos, James T. Faribault, Thomas Wolfe, and John Steinbeck, and in the drama Eugene O'Neill, Clifford Odets, and Maxwell Anderson. Thank you. Hope you understood the importance of period between 1914 to 1939. So this period is also called as the modern literature, and one of the important terms used is this age is called as the Jazz Age, and this age is also called as the age of lost generation. Thank you.